What's up, everybody? This is the Jedi. So, I've mentioned to you in the past that everything in creation submits to Allah. He has said this to us repeatedly in the Quran, and we see it with our own eyes in everyday life. This first video that I want to bring you is one that I was aware of probably about a year ago, maybe. I feel like it was a year ago. But I want you to see now how this cat will not walk on the Quran. Won't do it. Won't do it. Why? Because once again, you have to know something about the physical and the spiritual realm. Animals are spiritual as well, and by default they are under the command of the Almighty. There was even a video, I couldn't find it for this, maybe I'll find it sometime later, where this cat, when he hears the call to prayer of Islam, I forget what the cat would do. Anyways, and they kept showing it, and they would do different things to show that he only is doing this to this call to prayer, nothing else. Understand? You see? I mean, there's so much wealth of knowledge in the way of life of the Muslim, and we get to experience the majesty of Allah daily. In ways that you just cry, I've cried at this already, so I'm not going to need to cry in this damn video. Understand that. There'll be no waterworks from the Jedi. But see this now, and I figure I can show you better than I can tell you. I'm going to be showing you the honeybees. That's in Quran. Allah speaks specifically about the bees and how they build. And then you have, people that know stuff, just to say it plainly, talking about how the hexagons that they build, the hexagon is the most effective shape you could ever build, when you are stacking anything together and stuff like that. I mean, it's just amazing. And then the ants, we've known for 14 centuries, quite frankly, that the ants speak. There's a whole chapter of the Quran called the ants. This book is from the 6th century, and now you'll see. Anyways, let's begin with this, because this is just really provocative, really. See this. Now, this is the Quran, and you'll notice okay, first now he has a regular book. Now, he's just playing with the cat like you regularly play with a cat. And remember also, cats and dogs are precise as shit. They are precise. Sometimes I find myself taking 2 hours and I'm watching nothing but damn cat videos. I'm over it. But I'm just fascinated how precise they are. Precise. So if this cat meant to step on the Quran, he would have done it. But see this now, because this is just a regular book, this first one. Look, he just steps right on it. Because cats don't give a damn. They'll walk right on something. You'd be writing a piece of paper, and they come just right on where you're writing and sit on your shit and look at you like, what are you? Do you have a problem with me? Now the Quran. Same thing. You see? He's watching his step. But it's more than this, everybody. What you're witnessing in real time is the will of Allah. It's just like when I've brought you the video testifying to the statements in the Quran about Allah said He has established a barrier between the two seas, that when they come together they do not mix at His will, And I've shown you video of where the fresh water and the salt water come together. Huge bodies of water. You could sail your ship on it. You could ski on it. Do whatever you want. Right on that line. They do not mix. They do not mix by the will of Allah. So this is also that. You understand? Allah would never allow His holy book to be stepped on. It just wouldn't happen. Do you understand that as Muslims, you can't throw the Quran away? You can't even throw something away that has Quran on it. If it has authentic Quranic writing on it, you have to burn it. You can't throw it in the trash. It must be destroyed by fire. Let's go on. Look, he will not step on it. He's giving him every opportunity. Then he immediately puts down another book. Step. Just trampling on it. Did not believe it yet? Let's watch the second experiment. Now it's a different cat. Different book. Step. Different cat. Different book. No problem. The cat is all over the book. No problem. Allahu Akbar. Subhanallah. La ilaha illallah. What I wish they had done. This was good enough, but what I wish they had done is put a Bible down. That would have been classic. That would have been classic. That would have been classic. You know. But I had to bring that. I want to show you a couple more now. Now see this, everybody. And I remind you as we go through this, you can't do any of this with the Bible. You can't. You can't. Because it's not divine. It's not from the creator of the heavens and the earth, the creator of all existence. See this now. And be moved by it. Inshallah.
ويريكم آياته فأي آيات الله تنكرون
Have you ever wondered why bees construct hexagonal honeycombs rather octagonal or pentagonal? Mathematicians were looking for the answer to this question, and they reached to an interesting conclusion.
And look how perfect it is. Like, I can't.
A hexagon is the most appropriate geometric form for the maximum use of a given area. None of the other shapes fit together perfectly to provide more usable area and consume less amount of wax for construction of a comb.
Are you hearing this?
The bee's honeycomb is an amazing piece of
rather octagonal or pentagonal. Have you ever wondered why bees construct hexagonal honeycombs rather octagonal or pentagonal? Mathematicians were looking for the answer to this question.
They reached
to an interesting
conclusion.
A hexagon is the
most appropriate geometric
form for the maximum
use of a given area. Hexagon, bitches. Understand?
Use of a given area. None of the other shapes fit together perfectly to provide more usable area and consume less amount of wax for construction of a comb.
The bee's honeycomb is an amazing piece of engineering, but why have they evolved to produce this hexagonal pattern? Well, actually, they don't have too many choices. If you try to put pentagons together, for example, they just don't fit together nicely, or circles leave lots of little gaps. If they want to produce a network of regular shapes which fit together neatly, then you've really only got three options. You can do equilateral triangles, or you could do squares, or you can do the bee's hexagons. But why of those three does the bee choose the hexagons? Well, it turns out that the triangles actually use much more wax than any of the other shapes. Squares are a little better, but it's the hexagons which use the least amount of wax.
It's a solution that was only mathematically proven a few years ago.
So the bees use the most appropriate form possible. The method used in construction of honeycomb is also very amazing. Bees start the construction of the hive from 2 or 3 different places and weave the honeycomb simultaneously in 2 or 3 strings. They start from different places. The bees create a number, construct identical hexagons, and then weave the honeycomb by combining these together and meeting in the middle. The junction points of the hexagons are assembled so deftly that no defect can be found in the structure of honeycomb.
Look at this, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Hexagons here.
Yeah, it is amazing. And the hexagon is a very strong structure. It's an engineering wonder for sure.
While thinking about this extraordinary performance, we for sure have to admit the existence of a superior will that ordains these creatures. The evolutionists want to explain this achievement with the concept of instinct and
The
try to
evolutionists want
present
to
it as a simple
explain
act.
this concept with the want to explain this with the concept of instinct.
And
Oh, they just know. Well, you can't just say that, you know, because then do flowers have instinct? They just know when to bloom, you know. I mean, this is evidence of the divine will. The evidence of the divine will.
try to present it as a simple attribute of the bee.
They've just done it for thousands and thousands of years. They were born to do it.
Right. They've just done it for thousands. Said by a true devil. What else would they say? You see?
For thousands and thousands of years, they were born to do it. They just instinctively know that this is the shape of their home.
If there's an instinct at work, and if the rule is applied over all bees and leads them to work in harmony while they are not informed of each other, then it means that there is an exalted wisdom that rules over all these tiny creatures. Or in other words, the creator of these tiny creatures inspired them with what they have to do. And this fact was declared in Quran 14 centuries ago.
Amen. And your Lord inspired the bees. He's singing the Quran. I'm just reading you the English translation. And your Lord inspired the bees. Set up hives in mountains and and go along. The pathways of your Lord with precision. Huh? From their bellies emerges a fluid. Oh, excuse me. From their bellies emerges a fluid of diverse colors. Containing healing for the people. So Allah is telling you right there that the honey from the bee is medicinal for you. Listen, my own personal story, everybody. I hated the sight, the smell, the taste of honey. Don't get it near me. I'll stab you up. When I was young, even into my teenage years, even, I will tell you, the moment I understand that Allah had specifically mentioned honey in the Quran, I'm never without honey now. Never without it. Never without it. Love it. Love it. You understand? Love it. Like I always have honey in my home, and usually in the mornings I always have honey with warm water because that's what the Prophet used to do every morning. But that was it for me. Once your Maker, the Creator of all existence, mentions something specifically by name, like that's it. That's it. Containing healing for the people. Surely this is a sign for people who reflect. 16th chapter of the Quran, 68th verse to the 69th.
Furthermore, the worker bees, those who gather pollen and make honey, are actually all females. The male bees do.
And we know this is important to everybody, because it's a two-pointer thing that I can make for you right
those
here.
Who gather.
He goes, furthermore, the worker bees who gather the pollen, and make the honey are actually the females. We know this because of language, because the Arabic word that is used, that Allah uses for this, excuse me, we know is feminine. So when he's describing the worker bee, or the bees that do get the pollen and make the honey. So this goes to what I've told you a million times, another 100 billionth reason why you should throw that Bible into the sewer, and why you can't trust anything in it, because here we have the language of the Revelation, the only divine book that exists on earth, and the most sophisticated book on earth, and the most memorized book on earth. I could keep going. But this is important because it goes to what I've said to you about language, how if you change one thing, a strike on a letter, or how it's written, or any accent that's on it, because with Arabic letters you have a lot of these accents and strikes and things. You see all this, if you could see my cursor, like right here, and then right here, and right here, here, all this stuff means something. You understand? And so if you change one thing, you've changed the entire meaning, you've changed the entire word, everything about what it is, every single thing. Everything. You see? So we have the proof and we have the evidence to back it up. So he's saying that there actually are all females.
Are actually all females. The male bees do not make honey. This was only known recently. However, the mentioning verses pointed out to this fact 14 centuries ago.
He's saying this was known only recently in modern times, but of course Muslims have known it for 14 centuries. The Arabic word, well, he's going to explain it here. The Arabic word kuli, fasluki, and batunhad, are all in female forms. And then they're going to put the writing up on the screen. Let me go back just a skosh. Again, this is why language is so important.
This fact 14 centuries ago. The Arabic words kulli, fasluki, and butuniha are all in female forms, whereas the male forms of these words are kul, fasluk, and butunihim. So by using the female moods of these words, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informs us that the worker bees are the female ones. Moreover, these verses pointed to another recent discovery. Bees build their hives from their own wax. However, scientists just discovered bees that build their hive in wood and even in solid rock.
That's important to know. We got to see that again.
From their own wax.
Bees build their hives from their own wax.
However, scientists
just discovered bees
that build their hive in
that bees build their hives in wood and even in solid rock.
wood and even in solid rock.
And what did the Quran say?
And your Lord inspired the bee, set up hives in the mountains and
The
in
mountains, the stones, and the trees. Allahu Akbar. The mountain would represent the stone, the trees would represent wood. Allahu Akbar.
the trees, and in what they construct.
SubhanAllah. Wow. What a glorious creature. Surely in this is a sign for people who reflect, says Allah. But again, we've known this for 14 centuries. We've known it because there it is pronounced in the Quran. We know these things. Now, let us get to another one. Now, this one I'm bringing because I've said over the years at different times, we know that the ants talk. We know that the ants talk. I've said this. We know that the ants talk. As Muslims, we know the ants talk because there's a whole surah of the Quran. There's a whole chapter of the Quran called the ants. We already know. We know. Well, now they know too now. But again, we've known this for we've known it for over 14 centuries. Nearly 15 centuries. You see? But hear this report now.
Small talk. Very small talk. Scientists have long studied how various creatures communicate. Dolphins in the water, chimpanzees on land, birds in flight. But insects? Could they possibly have anything to say? Well, when it comes to the tiny ant, it turns out the answer may be yes. Here's Nick Watt.
Ants live in highly structured societies. They are masters of architecture and even agriculture. And now, scientists tell us, ants actually talk to each other.
Ants actually talk to each other. But again, we can always show proof, evidence, and proof. Again, I always tell my people, it doesn't matter what you want to know. There's no other way of life on earth that has, first of all, that has the divine revelation from our Creator, the Creator of all existence. Anything you're going to ask, anything you want to know about, literally anything, we have proof and evidence, period. And just again, because the Quran is a living document that continues to prove itself, and it will until the end of time. Now, as technology comes on board, we're able to show you in moving pictures things that have been known since the 6th century from this holy book. And this is yet another one of them. Because as I say, there's a whole chapter of the Quran called the ants. And Allah tells us that the ants are speaking. But hear this. The Quran told us that the ants talk to each other over 1400 years ago in chapter 27. The ants. I'll read it and you can hear the beautiful Arabic recitation. At length, when they came to a lowly valley of ants, one of the ants said, O ye ants, get into the habitation, lest Solomon and his host crush you underfoot without knowing it.
أتوا على واد النمل قالت نملة يا أيها النمل ادخلوا مساكنكم لا يحطمنكم سليمان
You see how he did that? Suleiman. He's giving respect to Solomon. Hear that again.
إنكم سليمان وجنوده وهم لا يشعرون.
I didn't go back far.
هم لا يشعرون. لا يحطمنكم سليمان وجنوده وهم لا يشعرون. ادخلوا مساكنكم لا يحطمنكم سليمان.
There.
لا يحطمنكم سليمان وجنوده وهم لا يشعرون.
Were you surprised by what you found?
We were. Yes, we were surprised.
Absolutely.
That was 1400-year-old news to Muslims. The Quran chose ants from among all insects and told humanity that they talk to each other. Scientists just proved that with our advanced modern technology.
وتلك الأمثال نضربها.
And these similitudes we put forward for mankind. In other words, these examples for the layman who doesn't know what a similitude is, that we put forward for mankind, but none will understand them except those who have knowledge.
للناس وما يعقلها إلا العالمون.
All right, another one we're going to go to now. What am I bringing? I did the ants. Oh, I got you. Watch out there now. Watch out. Watch out. This one now I'm bringing because I mentioned to you recently, and I thought about doing this in a separate video, but I'm just putting it with these just to give you a succession of some things. You know, my point, part of my provocation for doing this is I'm trying to hit you with some stuff that you just can't even deny. You know, that hopefully once again provokes you. By the way, here goes. I just noticed here's a hexagon. That I'm contrasting known shit right now today from what we've known for nearly 1500 years as Muslims. Period. And I remind you that at the time of the revealing of this book over the course of 23 years, the people who also lived at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they never saw this. They never saw this. They just had to believe it. So you could almost see where they would have legitimate reason to not believe and to doubt. But here now, that's been stripped away from you. You don't have any excuse. 'Cause I can show you the divinity of this book and its revelation. Here's another one for you that I'm gonna, well, before I play the video, let me give you something else, everybody. Because I brought you the miracle of the number 19 in the Quran and how astonishing it was. Peep this. You see, because Allah knows all things. And so, to the Christian who would say that Jesus was the Son of God, astaghfirullah azim, astaghfirullah, Allah is telling you in the Quran that Jesus is like Adam. Because he's showing you, he specifically references Adam because here's Adam who's created without a mother or a father. You see? And so he's showing you that even though we the royal we sent this pregnancy upon this purified woman, Mary, the mother of Jesus. Allah is saying, I'm able to carry out my will the same way there as I did with Adam. There is no begetting. There is no begotten. You understand? But here's what you need to know also, because Allah doesn't just tell you that. Then if you're searching, then you find the knowledge even deeper. You need to know that Jesus is mentioned 25 times in the Quran. Adam is mentioned exactly 25 times in the Quran. And they're not mentioned in the same chapters. You understand? So, because that would be too simple. Like, oh, here both of them are mentioned, and we go to the next chapter and they're mentioned together right there. No, damn it, no. They're mentioned random and apart. The only time they are mentioned together again in the Quran is the 25th time each one of them is mentioned. That's when they get mentioned together. Is the 25th time. And that's in the 19th chapter. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. You just can't. You can't. Man. Wow. Anyways, let us see this now. Because this one I was telling you about how the heart has its own consciousness. And then I just saw something recently before I'm not going to be able to get that for you. I'll just tell you about it right now. Because I've told you before about that there was this dude on Dr. Oz that was like, nah, what we thought about consciousness is all wrong, and we was just wrong. You know, I'm going to try and get clearance on this other piece that I seen where they're talking about when the brain stem, when there's no more function there, that's when they should be declaring you completely dead, because they've now understand what we've known since the 6th century, because Allah tells us this in the Quran. But anyway, we understand, and now they understand, that when you go to sleep at night, or if you just take a nap and go to sleep, your brain stem function stops. You are dead. You are dead, just as it says in the Quran. You are dead. You are dead. You understand? But now, so they understand now that they have buried many people that were not technically dead. Just because the heart had stopped and the organs stopped functioning and all that, if that brain stem is still lit up, homie, that person is still alive. You need to keep going. You understand? So they're just now understanding that. I'm over it. Which is like, it's funny because, just shut up, Jedi. Anyways, I just needed to share that. But anyways, see this now, because this is the heart. You know? And so, especially for me, being a spiritual person, I always say that's from my heart. It's from my heart. It's from my heart. It's from my heart. It's from my soul. It's from my heart. It's from my soul, you know? And I always speak from the heart, you know? I always say that. So, this is very important for you to understand this, but again, we can back it up with divine revelation.
Now, the physical heart, which is centered slightly to the left of the human being, and it's interesting also that the Arabic language itself is a movement from left to right.
We read and write from right to left.
Now the physical heart, which is centered slightly to the left of the human being, and it's interesting also that the Arabic language itself is a movement from left to right. Some of the
he misspoke. It's not left to right. It's right to left.
People of Ishara indicated that writing should be towards the heart. In other words, the whole purpose of writing.
Right. You see what I mean? He just misspoke there. Because if you're writing, especially if you're right-handed and you're writing Arabic, you're writing towards the heart. In English, you start on the right and right to the left. Or, I'm sorry, left to right. You see? So you're writing away from your heart. Arabic is written from right to left, towards the heart.
Writing is to affect the heart. This is also the reason why the tawaf, or the circumambulation around the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
The Kaaba in Mecca. Remember I showed you guys people how we go around the Kaaba 7 times, and so that your left side is to the building. And he's saying this now.
The heart. This is also the reason why the tawaf, or the circumambulation around the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is done with the left side facing the house. Some of the scholars have said because that the heart inclines towards the left, and so the purpose is that the heart is inclining towards the Kaaba, or towards that centrality of the divinity.
But that's also, you have to know something about the golden ratio, everybody, that they're never going to teach you in school. It's reflected in all of creation. These damn microbiologists and these genetics people, they know proof of God, but they don't teach that. I don't want to get into it, but I'm just going to say you need to look up the golden ratio. Look that up. It will change your entire existence. Do you understand? And so we already know this because, again, Islam, Allah has communicated everything to mankind. But you don't know it because you're following that Christian vomit, which all you know is Jesus, Paul, and Mark, or some fucking people. You don't know a damn thing about your creator, yourself, or creation, or anything. Here we can give you full dossiers on anything you want to know about death and dying. We got it for you. What you want to know? What you want to know? What you want to know? Anything you want to know about dieting and health? We got that for you. What you want to know? What you want to know? You see what I'm saying? Anything you want to know about anything. I can't even name stuff. I can't even come off my head with just random stuff. It's literally anything you want to know, we can tell you and expound upon it, because Allah is the holder of all knowledge, eternal, and He's communicated these things to mankind through His prophet and through His divine revelation. But you don't know that because you're up in a damn church with a damn praise dancer and a tambourine. You're ignorant. And that should be self-evident to you just by the shit I'm presenting in this damn video. You should feel your inferiority and then make a damn change.
Towards the Kaaba, or towards that centrality of the divinity in the life of man. Now, the actual physical heart, which is beating in our breast, beats at about 100,000 times a day. It's pumping 2 gallons of blood per minute and over 100 gallons per hour. If you actually took 100 gallons of water and moved them physically with your body from one place to another, by the end of it you'd be quite exhausted.
You'd be worn out. 100 gallons, like a gallon of water ain't really that heavy, but if you got to move 100 of them jokers just from one place to the next, like, I can't.
And yet this human heart is pumping 2 gallons of blood per minute, over 100 gallons per hour.
100 gallons per hour.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, for an entire lifetime. The vascular system that it's sending this life-giving blood is over 60,000 miles long. In other words, more than 2 times the circumference of the earth. So the blood is actually being forced through the body over 60,000 miles of vascular system in the human body. Now, one of the interesting things also about the heart is that we know that it actually starts beating before the brain is formed.
See? Because I showed you that in the embryology video. The heart starts beating before there's even a brain in your body. Like, that hasn't even come about yet. You see? And I also pointed out to you how Allah presents your skeleton first and then covers the skeleton with skin. It's not, you would think it's just like a piece of meat or something growing and then the bones would happen. No. Allah tells you that the bones form first and then He covers that with the skin.
Which means that the heart has its own beat. In other words, the heart
has its own beat. I shared with you guys the story of open heart surgery, which you can watch on YouTube. You can watch them take somebody's heart out of their chest and bring in a piece of meat on ice. It's no different than lamb chop you would go and buy at the store. And they put it in there, and when they release them clamps, you see God when that heart starts to beat, because there is no on or off switch. There's nothing. It's that it has to be the will of Allah that that heart beats. If that does not blow you away, I don't know who you are. I don't. My God. You just wonder, you see them bring that piece of meat and they go, how's that gonna, that's the you just took the heart out of the dude. How's this piece of meat gonna do anything? It's not like you bring in an electrical device that we just gonna turn it on once we hook it up. It's a piece of meat on ice. And they put that in the chest and they sew the valves and everything, and when they release them clamps and that blood starts flowing, that heart starts beating on its own. Allahu Akbar.
Self begins to beat without any central nervous system. Now, the dominant theory is that the central nervous system is what's controlling the entire human being from the brain, and yet we know now that the nervous system does not initiate the beat of the heart, that it's actually self-initiated, and we also know, or we would say initiated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also we know now that the entire heart, all of the connections to the brain can be severed in a heart transplant, and another heart can be put into a human being's body, and the heart continues to beat without any connection to the brain whatsoever, because we cannot regenerate nerve.
Do you hear that?
Cells. So the fact that the heart itself is not only the center of the human being, but it is not beating because of the brain, because of the central nervous system. Now, another interesting thing about the brain is that the human being, there are many actually people that think that the brain is also the center of consciousness, and yet the Quran very clearly states لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ لَا يَفْقَهُونَ بِهَا. They have hearts that they're not able to think with, or they're not able to understand with. And so the understanding from that, according to the Muslims, is that the center of the intellect, the center of human consciousness, is the heart and not the brain itself. And it's only recently that human beings have realized that there are over 40,000 neurons in the heart. In other words, there are actually cells in the heart that are communicating, and there's understood to be a two-way communication between the brain and the heart. In other words, the brain sends the heart messages, but the heart is also sending the brain message. And these things are only recently being discovered. There was a study done by two physiologists in the 70s, John and Beatrice Lacey, that found that the brain actually sent messages to the heart, but the heart did not automatically obey the messages. Sometimes it speeded up, and other times it slowed down, indicating that the heart itself has its own type of intelligence. Now, the brain gets signals from the heart that reach the amygdala, the thalamus, and the cortex, which relates to emotions. The cortex, the neocortex, relates to learning and reasoning. And these are only recently discovered, and we don't fully understand them. But what we do know is that the heart is an extremely sophisticated organ, and it's also, according to the hadith, it's a source of knowledge. The Prophet Muhammad
Remember, the hadith is from the knowledge of the Prophet. So he was given the revelation of the Kitab, the Quran, but then everything else that he spoke, Allah had already said that when he speaks, he's not speaking of his own accord. So the Hadith is also more detailed things that we know, and this is yet another one of them. So that he's already cited Quran for you. Now he's citing hadith of what the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Of knowledge.
That the hadith said that the heart is a source of knowledge.
The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that wrong action.
And he said that wrong action
is what irritates the heart.
Is what irritates the heart. You see, And that's important for me because when I always talked about, you always hear me talk about the whisper, and I always tell you how your soul has to be silent. You have to get your life into a place where you can hear it and recognize it so you can obey it. And then everything that you do in your life is the right move and all those things. So this is that, you know, like the prophet said, wrong action is what irritates the heart.
And you do not desire other people to see it. So the heart actually knows wrong action. And this is one of the reasons why people can do terrible things, but ultimately they're affected. If you look, for instance, in Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment, what the brilliant Russian author was indicating in that story was that the crime itself is the punishment, because human beings have to live with the results of their actions. And that the soul, when somebody does a crime, when somebody does something that is against the heart, is against the soul, then that actually affects the human being to the degree that they will go into a state of spiritual agitation, and they will use many, many ways to cover this up. This is what kufr is. It's a covering up. They will use alcohol, they will use drugs, they will use sexual experiment, they will use all seeking power, seeking wealth, seeking fame, all of these ways to try to basically to go into a state of heedlessness, into a state of submersion into the world that makes us forget our essential nature, that makes us forget our hearts.
In the body there is a lump of flesh. If it is sound, the whole body is sound. And if it is corrupt, the whole body is corrupt. Truly, it is the heart. And that is from a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What else you want to know, everybody? You know, like, what else you want to know? You know, I could sit here and play, you know, find shit and to back up any of our claims, you know, on anything. In fact, there's I think there's a couple more that I was supposed to bring you in this video. I'll break it up. I don't need to bring them all in this one. It's not that important. Because I'm going to be bringing them, you know. So rather than I stack them all up in this one, is not necessary. But I just feel like that this is the stuff that truth is made of. This is the stuff that, you know, when you're on a spiritual journey to find the truth, like for me, if I'm presented with this information, I certainly would be at the very least compelled to do a deeper search, like, because this is undeniable. Or it would be enough, I would just be like, you know, my search just ended. I found it. Done. You know. But why this is so important to me is because, as I've said before, and I'll continue to say, you know, I would really hate for our people to have been born and have put up with all their lives of being oppressed and disrespected and shit on by this fucking white devil and suffering in this life, and then you leave this life and go to hell. Like, why did you ever exist? Why did you ever exist? You understand? So I want my people to have an opportunity to be in paradise. I certainly want to. You know, it's real. It's real. It's not that white Jesus in the sky bullshit that they sell you in the Christian church. I've brought you in-depth video about death and dying and what happens to you before you die, and what happens to you seconds before you die, and right after you die, and what happens to you in the grave, and all of that. Because we know it. We know it. We know it. And so I'm trying to give you an opportunity to recognize truth, and then go and consult with the one that created you, the creator of all existence, and ask him for guidance. The Jedi cannot guide you. You see, I can just show you and tell you and give you the message and show you the proof. but that's where my journey ends. You must do it on your own. You must do it on your own. And sadly, I know a lot of my people are not thinking about any of this, because you've not had the privilege of having your safety and your health be put at jeopardy. People always want to get spiritual once they lose their health. They get some kind of diagnosis, now suddenly they want to turn to the maker, you know. Or maybe you get locked up or something, now you want to turn to the creator, you know. Whatever the case, you don't need to wait till it's something drastic, you understand? Just the little bit that I presented in this video is so airtight and beyond dispute that this alone should have you at least somewhere reading a Quran, at the very least. The very least. So, my next video that I'm working on, and actually I finished it, quite frankly. It's outlining that Isa alayhi salam, the prophet Jesus, that he was a damn prophet. Secondly, but most and foremost, that he was sent to black people, everybody. Jesus was sent to black people. He is not the savior of the world. He's not your Messiah and all that stuff. And I prove this in this video. So that is my next video, to show that indeed he was sent to the lost tribes of Israel. You know, we are the Israelites. I've always said that. I know that. We know that as Muslims. Yes, damn it, we know. But there is even some ambiguity there simply because of white handling of history and geography and language, you understand. And so, but yes, you know, the Israelites are acknowledged in the Quran as they are in that fake ass scripture. And this man was sent to us, our people. But I'll get into that when you see that video. Right now, this one is a wrap. Talk back to me, everybody. This is the Jedi.